Hey everyone, welcome to our first ggplot lecture for the data products course here on either Praxis or on YouTube if you're watching this on YouTube. Today we're going to get started with some simple bar plots with ggplot. Ggplot is an awesome package in that it allows you to really manipulate graphs and almost every aspect of them and add different facets and these things to it to make a very impressive visualization of your data or a data product. So we're gonna get into it with ggplot here and let's get rolling. Okay, so first let me open up our studio here. Alright, first things first, we're going to do our markdown file. We're just going to call this ggplot2 because it's the second version of ggplot. And then we're going to say Barplots. We'll make it an HTML file. Let's get rid of all this jazz. Alright, so let's annotate, always annotate. Now let's take a look at some ggplot2 bar plots. We'll start with making a data frame based on the tooth data that, if you remember from the earlier courses, was the vitamin C tooth data, where they gave guinea pigs different kinds of vitamin C, whether it was orange juice or actual just vitamin C supplements, and then measured the tooth growth. So we're going to create a data frame where we have dose equals, and then we're going to put our doses in. D is capital D 0.5, D1, D2, and then the length we're going to say is 4.2, 10, and 29.5. And then we'll call data frame to see what we got there. Oops. All right. Oh, we don't need that R there. All right, there we go. Okay, so you see we have our dose of 0.5, 1, and 2, and then we have our lengths 4.2, 10, and 29.5. And so we're just doing this so we have data to actually make bar plots with, right? And now let's make a second data frame. And we're going to call this just df2 for data frame 2. And we will do data frame, the function, and call sup equals rep of VC and OJ, each equals 3. So it says make a row where you have VC and OJ, and you repeat that 3 times. We're going to say dose equals rep, and then we're going to do our D 0.5, D1, D2, and we're going to rep that twice. Oops, gotta have the parenthesis up here, and then the comma, then move it down. And then we're going to say the length equals 6.8, 15, 33, 4.2, 10, and 29.5. And then we'll call it df2. Oops. Okay. So if we look at this one now, we have our supplement on the first column. So we have the vitamin C supplement and our dosage of 0.5, 1, or 2, and then the length the tooth actually grew. Then we have our OJ group where we had a dose of 0.5, 1, or 2, and then we have our lengths associated with them. Sweet. All right. So now let's load up ggplot2. So we're going to call library, and we're going to do ggplot2. And let's run this and make sure we got it where it can be loaded. Good. Okay. And now let's set our parameters for ggplot. So you can set like different themes and things like that with how you want it to look kind of starting out. You can always modify it. But we'll do theme set, theme, classic, just a nice and easy theme. And then we'll call theme legend. You can see you can move all your legends, change everything. We're just going to change our legend position, and we're going to say that our legend's going to be at the top, just because we can kind of get out of the way and see it. So we'll run that, and so as you see, it doesn't do anything, right? It does it in the background. So what it's doing is it says, okay, every time we use ggplot now, we're going to use the classic theme, and our legend's always going to be at the top. Okay, so now let's start with some basic bar plots using the tooth data. All right, so let's start by creating a variable called f. And what f is going to be a ggplot object. So we're going to say f is called ggplot. You don't have to call ggplot2, you just call ggplot. ggplot2 is just the package. So we're going to call ggplot, and then we're going to say, take our data frame that we had created above, data frame 1, or data frame with no number, and our aesthetic is going to be x equals dose, and y equals length. Easy breezy. And then we're going to say f. So we've stored this, so if I just run this, you see nothing gets printed. There's no graph yet, right? And so this is just making a ggplot object. So we have this list of 9 things, and it has our theme saved in here. It has our layers, our data, the labels, all that stuff, right? So we haven't told it to plot yet. We just said take our data frame, put it into a ggplot object. Okay, so now we're going to say f, our ggplot object, and we're going to add a facet to it. So we're going to add geom col, and we're going to run this. Okay, so now you see we have a bar plot where we have the length as our y-axis, our dose is our x-axis, and you can see we have, this was our basic data frame, right? So we didn't have, orange juice versus VC. This was just very basic, right? Because I wanted to show you something very basic. So, okay, so as you can see, if we take our ggplot object and then call some sort of facet, that will actually, or some sort of ggplot call, then that will actually print out the graph. Okay, so now let's change the fill and add labels to the top. So we're going to do f plus geom col. So that's what we called before, and we used all the basic settings, so we get this gray and white graph with black labels and axes, right? So we're going to change it though, so that our let's see, fill equals dark blue, and we add a plus. So this is kind of like the tidyverse, right, where we were adding different pluses to add different kind of layers to our whatever our function is or whatever we're doing with tidyverse. So this is similar, where we can add another like facet or layer to our ggplot. So we do dark blue, and then we add another one called geom text, and we say our aesthetic for that is the label equals length, and vjust equals -0.3. So this is just changing kind of the location, so you can really like move your labels like in by pixels, -0.3, +0.3, up or down the x-axis. So you really have a lot of control of what your graph looks like. And so now So V is, I believe it's V just is vertical justification. And so this is, so what this geom text does, you notice that we had our length and our dose already, so that's our x and our y axis, right? And so what this does is add these numbers to the top of the columns, and it says vertical justify them by -0.3, so it moves them a little bit further down, closer to it. So now you can see you don't have to use this kind of guessing, right? So we want to make these graphs as understandable as possible. So now I can look at this and say, okay, dose 0.5 was 4.2. I don't have to like guess. It looks like it's kind of between 4 and 5, maybe, etc. So nice. So we're getting nicer and nicer graphs as we go here, right? So now let's add the labels inside the bars. Okay. So now we'll take our ggplot object, which we called f. We're going to do our fill equals, we'll keep it as dark blue. You can play around with it if you want and just choose blue or whatever color you want. You can also use the hexacode, right? So it's like the 6 number letter or number combination will pull up different colors if you want to be super specific. Like I said, this is super customizable, so you can make, it's pretty cool that you have a lot of control. That's why a lot of people like ggplot. All right, so now we're going to add our text, and we're going to say our label. So geom text aesthetic label equals length. We're going to say vjust equals 1.6, and color equals white. So actually, so the 0.3 moved it up 0.3, and I believe this will move it down. So I think it's backwards. Let's try this. Yep. So now you see our vjust, we adjusted at 1.6, so I'll move those numbers down just under the top of the columns there, and we changed them to white, so they'll stick out. As you know, if we move the black ones there, we could have, you know, if I keep this as, if I do black, it just won't pop, right? So you can hardly see it. So we change it to white. Beautiful. All right, let's keep on keeping on. It's all pretty basic stuff so far. So now let's add the labels inside the bars. Oh no, we just did that. Oh, so now let's change the bar plot colors by group. That sounds good. All right, so we're gonna do a column. Geom column, and we're going to say our aesthetic color equals dose, fill equals white, and then we're plus, and then we're going to do scale color manual. So it's going to say choose scale color manual means choose our colors ourselves. Essentially, that's what the function does. So we're going to choose the colors, and we're going to say our values are blue, gold, and red. So now if we wanted to change it so each of our 3 different doses, and you can see we now have a our label at the top here that says kind of our legend, where dose 0.5 is blue, dose 1 is gold, dose 2 is red. Okay, moving on. So this is kind of hard to see, so let's change the fill. So let's just fill those in, right? Because I think that would look sharp. So f plus geom cal aesthetic fill equals dose plus scale fill manual Oh, sorry. Let's see. What am I? Oh yeah. Okay. So essentially, this is the same code. At values equals C blue, gold, red. Okay. So essentially, this looks like the same code, right? But instead of using previously we did color equals dose, fill equals white, and then we did the colors here. Now we can just scale fill manual and just change the fill. So we're leaving our outside as white, like the lining here, and instead of changing scale color manual, we called scale fill manual. It allowed us to change the inside. So this pops a little bit more, looks a little bit better. It's kind of a little bit in your face, but I guess to each their own, right? So let's look at multiple groups here. Okay, so now let's use that second data frame, right? So we had the orange juice group and the regular group. Annotate. All right. Okay, how do we do this with multiple groups? Okay, so df2 aesthetic x equals dose, y equals length. Next facet, genome, we're going to call our bar graph or column graph. Color equals our supplement. Fill equals our supplement, so whether it's orange juice or vitamin C. Position equals, we're going to start with position stack. So this is going to put the two groups on top of each other. You'll see what that means in a second. Color manual values equals C blue or gold based on our vitamin C or orange juice. And then lastly, we're gonna do our scale fill manual, and we're going to do the same thing. So you could actually just take this and copy and paste. Okay. Oops, I already had that there. All right, let's see what this one looks like. Error. All right, blue, gold. What am I doing here? Scale. Okay, there we go. So we have them stacked, right? So we see that our supplement for orange juice is this much value higher, right? Or no, excuse me. So we probably should have put it in the other way. I'm not going to mess with it because orange juice was always lower, I believe. See 4.2 and 6.8. So this would be the blue 4.2, and this would be the gold 6.8. So if you added them up, you'd get this about 10. So this isn't a great way to do it for this data set, but we will just use this as an example. Okay, so now okay, so that's how you do the stack graphs. I'm not a huge fan of stack graphs anyway. I mean, the nice thing is if you had a data set where you're like, okay, I'm measuring the percent of people. Say this is like, okay, we had 60 participants, and then you divided this into, okay, this many were male and this many were female. That would be a good way. So you can see like the total number of participants, the number of male, the number of female. That would be a good way. This data, we're just using the example. I don't want to have like a million data sets where, you know, each one is perfect. You know, apply it at your leisure. So, okay, let's keep going. What if we just want to put them next to each other, right? So we're going to call this object P equals ggplot df2 aesthetic equals x equals dose, y equals length. So we're doing the same, telling the same column or bar graph, like, all right, data frame 2, x equals dose, y equals length. Geom color or aesthetic is going to be color equals sup, fill equals sup, which were our supplements. Position equals position, dodge 0.8. So let's go back to this quick. So position dodge, see, dodge overlapping objects side to side. So you have to use this to move things that are next to each other, right? And so we're going to do that to create our side-by-side graph here. 0.8, and you can play around with that number if you want to make it larger or smaller. Go for it. Oops, we forgot. And we're going to add our width of our columns equals 0.7. Scale, color, manual. Values equals C, blue, Bluey. Bluey is a great show if you have kids. I've been watching a lot of Bluey this summer, so I will vouch for my Blue Healer friend. Alright, scale, fill, manual, values equals C, blue, gold. So this is, I didn't really read off a lot of the stuff, so you can see this is, for the most part, the same that we had up here. The first line is exactly the same. The second line, what we've changed is our position. Instead of position stack, we said position dodge, and we gave the amount to move them to the side and how wide we want our columns. Then everything else is the same. One thing I want to show you with this, so you can actually save the graphs into a, did this not run? There we go. So you can save the your graph into a variable and then just call your variable. You can do that as well. You don't have to print it out after every time you call it. You can just, like, if you wanted to call, if you're writing like a R markdown file like this, and you just wanted to create all the graphs at the top and then display all the graphs at the bottom, you could do that by, saving them in variables and just call them variables at the bottom. So here we go. So you can see now this makes more sense, right? Because this one, the bar heights are what we're worried about. So you'd have to know the bar height of yellow to know what this kind of number is, although we could put the numbers on there like we did above. We'll get to that in a bit. But as you can see here now, this makes more sense. We have our supplement, orange juice, fruits, vitamin C. We have our height of our two columns, which is good. Okay, so now let's add those labels to the dodged bar plot. I don't know if that's what we really call it, but it makes sense to us, right? Okay, so P plus, so now that we saved, the reason we did this, we saved this, now we can just take, we don't have to keep typing this, right? Because we have it saved as a variable. So we'll take P and we'll add geom text. And our aesthetic for the text, our label will be length, group equals sup, position equals, so we have to keep our position dodge the same, right? Because we want them to be over top of our actual labels. And then our vjust equals negative 0.3. And then our size of our text is going to be 3.5. And I encourage you, while you're doing this, like, change the numbers and see how it changes on the graph. So as you can see here, we've just added the actual numbers, which they get from our length in our supplement. And the position dodge is the same. The vjust, we've moved it up a little bit by doing -3. I don't know why they're backwards like that, but that's what they are. And our size is 3.5. So, like, if I change this, let's change this to like 10.5. You can see it's kind of comically big. So if you want to, like, when you're doing your graphs throughout this course or at the end of the quarter for your final project or whatever, if you're doing this for my class, you can play around with it and change. Like I said, almost everything is customizable, which is kind of cool because it really allows you full control of how your graphs look. Okay, and so let's kind of finish this up. Okay, so what if we want to, we have to annotate. Now what if we want to add labels to our stacked Barplots, which were not great, but if, like I said, if you're doing like the male-female thing, like my example earlier, they'd be much better. Okay, so we're going to use dplyr, which if you took the R bioinformatics class, you are definitely familiar with. So let's, because we need to use the mutate function, which is in dplyr. So df2, we're going to say is, we have to mutate this. So, and we were using our piping like before. If you took, I hope you took that course or watch that video because it's very useful. All right, so we're taking data frame 2 and we're saving it as data frame 2, but we're making changes. Right, so we're gonna group by dose and then pipe down to the next line. We're gonna arrange by dose, descending by supplement. Pipe down, we're gonna mutate our lab label y position equals cumulative sum of length minus 0.5 times length. Okay, so I'm going to first look at data frame 2, and this is our data frame 2, right? I'm then going to run this and look at data frame 2 again, and you see that we've changed the order. So it's order of supplement dose. It goes, before it was VC, 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 OJ, OJ, OJ. So we just changed it so it's VC and OJ. Dose is most important. And then we added the label position column. That was with the mutate function. So now, let's just call data frame 2. I won't run this again because you're going to mutate it again. So make sure that if you ran it before you called it, that you put it in a new section here. Because you might get something weird that doesn't look like mine if you run this twice, because one habit, you have to be careful when you modify a data frame and save it into the same name, because you can keep modifying it. So this might not be the best practice, but you just have to be aware of it if you are going to do it. Okay, so now you see I just called it, but I showed you the same thing that I just did. All right, so now the last thing we're going to do, now that we got our data set up, now let's recreate our stacked graphs. We're going to do this with the labels now. So df2 that we've changed, we're going to add our aesthetic equals x equals dose, y equals length, and then geom column, make a column, bar graph fill equals sup, our width equals 0.7, geom text, so we're going to add text to it, where the aesthetic is the y equals, this is where we need the label position because we got to tell where to put the text, right? And we want them on the stacked part. Label equals length, group equals supplement, color equals white, because we're going to put them actually like on top of our colors, so we want them to stand out. And then we're going to add our, let's save some typing. We're just going to grab the scale color manual values and this scale fill manual values, and we're just going to add those too. Some of the stuff, like I said, you can be can be very efficient by saving these in variables and just calling the variables. Like if we had this all saved, we could just say add this to our variable. All right, let's run this quick. Lab position, y equals, oh, lab y position. There we go. So now you can see I could change this color. Instead of white, I could do C white, 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 black, 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 and probably change these bottom ones to black to make it stand out better. But you get the drill. So one thing I'm going to try, so we saved P, right? Oh no, yeah, P. Okay, so what we can do too, so P was just our ggplot object, right? So if we do P plus, and just take this, oh no, this isn't going to work because this was not our stacked graph. Okay, let's try F plus this real quick. Oh, no. Okay, get rid of that. Let's try this. Yeah, that's why we didn't do this, because I didn't save the right one. Okay, so you could save this top part into a variable if you wanted to play around with. So like if you can save them as variables so you don't have to keep typing, and then add piece by piece if you want to like see how different things fit and how different things look. Yeah, but we didn't. So, all right, so we're at a half hour. That is it. This was kind of long. I hope you enjoyed this. So bear with me. The first section of visualization, it's really important to visualize your data and to do it well. So if you're taking this course through Praxis, you've read articles where bad visualization of data can give people bad or lead to bad interpretation, right? And so you can get data and people think it says something when it shouldn't, because it's just misleading. And so visualizing data is super important. What's the point of doing, I'm going to hammer this home throughout all these courses, what's the point in doing clinical research or any sort of research or any sort of study if you don't relay that information to people? And visualization is the key to that. People aren't going to go and read all these journal articles, but if you can summarize stuff in a very nice, beautiful data visualization product, then that's going to be the best way to convey this stuff. So we're going to work through a few of these, a few more of these ggplot type of graphs and some other visualization methods, and then after that we're going to get into some kind of interactive graphs and things like that. So thanks for watching this. I hope you enjoyed. If you're watching this on YouTube, please hit subscribe, and I will catch you in the next one.